Good morning, girls and boys. I'm looking a little bit different today. I have this headpiece on and I thought I might read part of a story, Cinderella, because we'll be here all day if I read it all. But I'm wondering if you have a different Cinderella story at home, because sometimes we have stories that are a little bit different to one that we've heard. So I'm going to read this. I didn't actually have a gown, so I've just put on a dress. And I just thought I'll just look a little bit different for you today. So Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a small kingdom, there lived a beautiful girl named Cinderella. She and her widowed father led a peaceful, rich life. Her father was a kind and devoted gentleman, and Cinderella loved him dearly. But he knew that Cinderella needed a mother, so he remarried. Cinderella's stepmother had two daughters of her own, Drizella and Anastasia. Drizella, sorry. So a little bit different, that name. Soon, however, Cinderella's father died, leaving Cinderella in her stepmother's care. Cinderella soon realised her new family was jealous of her charm and beauty. Her stepmother grew more cold-hearted every day. She cared only for her own daughters. Before long, Cinderella was forced to become a servant in her own home. She waited on her grim stepmother and vain stepsisters, hand and foot. But through it all, Cinderella still believed her dreams would come true someday. In her attic bedroom, she was awakened each day by the little bird's sweet songs. Yes, I know it's a lovely morning, she sighed, but I had such a lovely dream. The birds and the mice of the house wanted to hear about her dream, but Cinderella wouldn't tell them. If you tell, it won't come true, she said. Her stepsisters rang for breakfast. It was time to go to work. Well, there's one thing, Cinderella said brightly to her friends. They can't order me to stop dreaming. Suddenly Jack, the little mouse, came running in. A visitor had been caught in a trap. Hurry, Cinderella! Come! Cinderella was concerned because she really cared for the mice. She always made sure they had enough to eat and even made little clothes for them to wear. She dashed out of her room and ran down the long stairway. When Cinderella reached the trap, she found a plump little fellow caught inside. He was very frightened at first, but she and Jack soon convinced him they were friends. Cinderella gave him a little skirt, cap and shoes. A little shirt, Mrs. Mac. Cap and shoes and the name Octavius. Then she decided to call him Gus for short. Very cute. Knowing the other mice would take care of Gus, Cinderella headed for the kitchen to start breakfast. Don't forget to warn Gus about Lucifer, she called out to Jack. Jack explained to Gus that Lucifer, the cat, belonged to Cinderella's stepmother, and he was not very nice at all. In the kitchen, Cinderella gently called to Bruno the dog. Dreaming again? She asked. Bruno nodded excitedly. Chasing Lucifer, I bet. Well, you better get rid of those dreams if you want to keep a nice warm bed. When Cinderella couldn't convince Bruno that even Lucifer might have a good side, she took him out into the yard. It's breakfast time, everybody, Cinderella called sweetly. The chickens gathered around Cinderella as she tossed them their food. Major the horse watched them happily from the barn. The mice were invited too, but first they had to get out of the house past mean old Lucifer. Jack tiptoed quietly up beside the nasty cat, who was drinking out a bowl of fresh milk. With one swift kick, Jack knocked the cat's paw out from under him, and splat! Lucifer's face fell right into the bowl. Now the mice had time to scurry past, and Lucifer out into the yard. "Oh, there you are. I was wondering where you were," Cinderella smiled. She tossed some kernels of corn to the mice. Gus's eyes were too big for his stomach, and he gathered more coin than he could carry. Here he is. So you can see. Goodness me, he's got lots of corn ready to go. Paying attention only to his food, Gus ran smack into Lucifer, who wanted to eat him for breakfast. But Gus was so loaded down with corn, he couldn't get away. Thinking fast, Jack knocked a broom over on Lucifer to help Gus escape. With Lucifer in pursuit, Gus ran up onto the kitchen table and hid under a teacup. Lucifer began to lift the cup where Gus was hiding when, ring, ring, Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters were impatient for breakfast. "Cinderella! Cinderella!" Their shrill voices echoed through the house and out into the yard. Cinderella rushed into the kitchen and chased Lucifer from the table before he could grab poor Gus. Then she began to prepare the breakfast trays for the family. She was in such a hurry she didn't notice that Gus was hiding under the table of teacups. Uh-oh, that sounds like that could be a bit of a mischief. Carefully balancing the trays, Cinderella climbed the long stairway to the bedrooms, but as she reached the top of the staircase, she heard a familiar screech. "Cinderella!" It was Drizella. Cinderella rushed into Drizella's bedroom. "Take that ironing and have it ready in an hour," Drizella demanded. Next, Cinderella went to Anastasia's room to drop off her breakfast. "It's about time," Anastasia whined. Just as Cinderella left the last tray with her stepmother, she heard a frantic scream. Anastasia had discovered Gus under her teacup. She ran into her mother to tattle. Tattle means to tell a tale. "Come here," Cinderella's stepmother ordered from the dark shadows of her bed. Cinderella moved toward the bed and pleaded. "Oh, please, you don't think that I—" "Hold your tongue," her stepmother commanded. Assuming Cinderella was guilty, her stepmother gave her a list of extra chores to do, including giving Lucifer a bath. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, the widowed king had his own problems. His son, the prince, was drifting further away from him. "I'm lonely in this desolate old palace," he complained to the Grand Duke. "I want to hear the pitter-patter of little feet again." The king decided to arrange a ball in the prince's honour. If they invited every eligible maiden in the land, surely the prince would choose one to marry. Later that morning, a messenger knocked on Cinderella's door. "Open in the name of the king," he cried. Cinderella answered the door and was handed an urgent letter from the palace. The messenger's bag was filled with invitations. Cinderella's stepmother grabbed the letter and read it out loud. When they learned that there was to be a ball in the prince's honour, and all eligible young women were invited, Drizella and Anastasia could hardly contain their excitement. Realising that she too was invited, Cinderella quickly joined in. Her stepsisters laughed at the idea of Cinderella going to the ball, but her stepmother said, "I see no reason why you can't go if you get all your work done and find something suitable to wear." Cinderella searched for the right gown to wear. She decided on one that belonged to her mother. When the mice commented that it looked a little old-fashioned, Cinderella smiled. She knew that with some help and a little work, it would be wonderful again. Cinderella! Cinderella! Her stepsisters and stepmothers called out frantically. Oh, now, what do they want? She sighed. Now that Cinderella had to attend to her stepmother and stepsisters, she knew that her dress would have to wait. But after she left, the mice felt sorry for her. They knew that she would never get the dress done in time for the ball. Her friends all decided to pitch in. Gus and Jack found a pretty pink sash and shiny string of blue beads that Cinderella's stepsisters had thrown away. Soon, with a needle and thread, the simple dress was turned into a beautiful gown. Evening fell over the kingdom, and it was time for the ball. Coach after coach pulled up the royal palace. Eligible maidens were already lining up to meet the handsome prince. Alas, it was too late for Cinderella. Her stepmother and stepsisters had kept her busy right up until the time to leave for the ball. Now she could only dream about it, what it would be like. Then Cinderella heard something behind her. She turned and saw the birds and mice opening her closet to reveal her new dress. Overwhelmed, she thanked her little friends for all the hard work. Now, if she hurried, maybe she could still make the ball. Cinderella dressed quickly and ran down the stairs to join the stepsisters. Unfortunately, when Rosella and Anastasia saw Cinderella's new dress, they also noticed their discarded beads and sash. Furious, the stepsisters tore them off her dress, ruining it for good. Cinderella's stepmother simply stood by and watched, satisfied that Cinderella would not be going to the ball. Heartbroken, Cinderella ran into the garden in tears. Now her dream would never come true. She cried softly, hopelessly. There's nothing left to believe in. Nothing, she sobbed. Bruno and Major watched helplessly. Poor Cinderella. Then a strange glow appeared in the garden. Light seemed to gather around Cinderella. Soon, a kindly old woman appeared. It was Cinderella's fairy godmother. She told Cinderella to dry her tears, knowing that Cinderella had really not given up hope and still believed in her dreams. The fairy godmother promised that she would go to the ball. With a wave of her wand and some magical words, the fairy godmother turned a garden pumpkin into a beautiful coach. Cinderella and the animals couldn't believe their eyes. Then before they knew it, Gus, Jack, and two of their friends were turned into 4 proud white horses. Major became the coachman, and Bruno was transformed into the footman. But the fairy godmother was not finished. She still had to change Cinderella's rags into an elegant gown. Just leave it to me. What a gown this will be, she told Cinderella with confidence. She waved her wand with gusto and dressed Cinderella in a splendid new gown and sparkling glass slippers. Before Cinderella left the palace, her fairy godmother warned her that the magic would not last forever. Cinderella had to be sure to return home by the stroke of midnight. That was when everything would change back to what it had been: a pumpkin, 4 mice, a horse, and a dog. Cinderella thanked her fairy godmother, and then she was off to the ball. Cinderella arrived at the palace entrance just as the prince was being introduced to Rosella and Anastasia. He looked up to see Cinderella enter the ballroom. Immediately enchanted, he quickly brushed past Drizella and Anastasia to greet her. Cinderella was captivated by the handsome man, who bowed graciously before her. Meanwhile, happy that the prince had finally shown an interest in someone, the king ordered the orchestra to play a waltz. Cinderella and the prince whirled about the ballroom floor, gazing into each other's eyes. It seemed as if they had been dancing only minutes when Cinderella heard a clock chime. It was midnight. Cinderella ran away without saying goodbye. Her beautiful dream had come to an end. She raced through the ballroom and down the long palace stairway. She ran so fast that neither the prince nor the Grand Duke could catch her, but she had lost one of her glass slippers along the way. Cinderella jumped into the coach just as the Grand Duke found her slipper and called for the guards. "Follow that coach!" he yelled frantically. The guards chased Cinderella's coach, but never found her. The magic had worn off. "Oh, it was wonderful," Cinderella sighed. Then she noticed she still had a glass slipper. She looked up into the sky with a smile. Hoping her fairy godmother could hear her, she whispered, "Thank you for everything." Now I'm going to finish the story there, boys and girls. There are some pages obviously left to go. I'm wondering if you've heard a Cinderella story that basically is similar but has some different parts to it. I hope you've enjoyed 3/4 of my story today. I just want to say well done for all the work you've uploaded yesterday. You've done a great job. Today you have some collective nouns to do, so we know that's a group of nouns, what that is. Once you've done that, make sure upload your work so I can see it. Then write a letter to a friend and I will share those letters with your friend, okay? We then have some maths, so doing the tens activity and then looking at chance. So today I'm actually looking out my window and we could look at the words of chance like impossible, possible, likely, unlikely. And I'm looking out my window and today I would say it is likely it's going to rain. I can tell that by looking that the clouds are grey, it's looking really overcast, the sun's not really outshining. So we use those words to describe how something can be. After doing that, you're going to do some integrated studies. So of course we're still looking at habitats. So I can't wait to see all your work today. I've enjoyed looking at everything. I miss you all terribly. I can't wait to see you all and I'm hoping that's next week. Can't wait to see you all and enjoy your day. Remember, give mum and dad a big hug. Thank them for all the work that they're doing with you. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.